Rain turned West 47th Street into a ribbon of black glass beneath the city lights, reflecting red taillights, gold windows, and the occasional flash of headlights as cars slipped through the wet darkness. Sofia Reyes pulled the collar of her coat higher around her neck and hurried toward the entrance of the private club where her sister had promised to meet her, one hand protecting the leather strap of her handbag from the rain. She had spent the entire afternoon at the language school, listening to businessmen butcher Russian verbs with the confidence of men who had never been corrected by a woman they considered too young to know better. By the time her last student left, Sophia had been ready for wine, food, and exactly 1 hour of conversation that did not involve conjugation. She had not been prepared to see Dmitri Volkov. She almost walked straight past him. He stood beneath the awning outside the club, dressed in a black overcoat that looked as though it had been tailored onto his body. Rain darkened the shoulders of his coat, and his dark hair was pushed neatly away from his forehead. Two men stood several feet behind him, speaking quietly, but neither seemed particularly interested in their conversation anymore. Dmitri was looking directly at her. Sophia stopped. For 2 years, she had imagined this moment in 100 different ways. Sometimes she imagined herself walking past him without looking. Sometimes she imagined slapping him. Once, during a particularly miserable night when she'd had too much wine and not enough dignity, she'd imagined throwing a glass of champagne directly into his face. She had never imagined standing 3 feet away from him with her heart beating so violently that she could feel every pulse beneath her throat. Dmitri said her name. Sofia. That was all. One word. Her body remembered him before her mind could protect her from the memory. She hated that. She hated him for it. She hated herself even more. I didn't know you'd be here. The lie sounded weak even to her. Dimitri's gaze moved over her face, lingering for one fraction of a second too long before settling back on her eyes. He had always looked at her that way, not casually, not politely, as though he were memorizing her. He stepped closer. You knew. Sophia swallowed. I didn't. You always knew exactly where I'd be. His voice was quiet. That had always been worse than anger. Dmitri Volkov had never needed to raise his voice to make a room listen. You just spent 2 years pretending you didn't care. Something inside her snapped. She lifted one hand intending to push his chest. Instead, her fingers caught in the front of his shirt beneath his open coat. They both looked down, then back at each other. Sophia should have let go. She didn't. I hate you. The words came out softer than she intended. Dimitri's eyes darkened. Good. He leaned closer. Hate me up close. Her breath caught. For one suspended moment, the rain, the traffic, the men behind him, the entire city seemed to disappear. His forehead almost touched hers. Sophia could smell cedar and rain on his coat. She could remember his apartment without trying, the bedroom windows, his hand at the small of her back, the way he used to wake before her and pretend he hadn't been watching her sleep, the way he'd once kissed her forehead before leaving for meetings because he thought she was still asleep. The memories came so quickly that they hurt. She pulled back. Dmitri didn't stop her. His jaw tightened. Neither of them spoke. Then a black sedan came screaming around the corner. Dimitri's entire body changed. 1 second, he was the man standing dangerously close to the woman he had spent 2 years pretending not to love. The next, he was something else. His arms swept across Sophia's chest and drove her backward. Down. The first gunshot cracked through the rain. Sophia screamed. Dmitri shoved her behind a parked sedan as another bullet struck the metal above them. Everything happened at once. Men appeared from the club entrance. The 2 bodyguards who had been standing behind Dmitri drew weapons. Cars braked. Someone shouted. Sophia crouched behind the sedan with both hands pressed over her ears, her heart pounding so violently she couldn't tell whether the sound she heard was gunfire or her own pulse. Dmitri rose. He moved with frightening calm. 3 shooters had emerged from a dark vehicle across the street. They weren't panicking. They weren't firing wildly. They were trained. Dmitri recognized that immediately. He returned fire with controlled precision, forcing 2 of them back toward the alley. The 3rd man hesitated. Dmitri's eyes found him. The shooter ran. Dmitri didn't follow. He turned immediately. He came back to Sofia. He dropped to his knees in front of her and gripped her face between both hands. "Are you hurt?" Sofia stared at him. "Answer me." "I'm fine." "Are you sure?" "Yes." His eyes searched her face, then her shoulders, her arms, her coat. Only when he was certain she wasn't bleeding did something in his expression loosen. And that frightened Sofia more than the gunfire. Because she remembered that look. She had seen it before. Not 2 years ago, not during their breakup. Before that, when he loved her. Dmitri stared at Sofia as though he had forgotten how to breathe. And suddenly, Sofia understood something she had spent 2 years refusing to consider. Whatever had happened between them, whatever lie had destroyed them, he had not looked at her like a man who had stopped loving her. Not then, and certainly not now. To understand why 2 people who had once loved each other enough to destroy themselves were standing in the middle of a rain-soaked street with bullets still echoing between buildings, we have to go back. Back before the betrayal. Back before the silence. Back to the first time Sofia Reyes walked into the Volkov world and unknowingly became the one thing Dmitri Volkov would be willing to lose everything to protect. If you love the kind of romance that hurts before it heals, forbidden, dangerous, the kind where 2 people are torn apart by something bigger than either of them, stay with me and subscribe, because Sofia and Dmitri's story is about to break your heart before it puts it back together. This is a story about a man who let the woman he loved believe he'd betrayed her because the truth would have gotten her killed. It's about a woman who built a life around a wound she never let heal properly. And it's about what happens when the world that separated them stops being able to keep them apart. Now let's go back to the beginning. Sofia met Dmitri on a Tuesday afternoon in October. The language school occupied the 2nd floor of an old brick building on the Upper East Side, above a bakery that filled the stairwell with the smell of cinnamon every morning. Sofia had taught Russian there for 3 years and loved almost everything about the job, except the occasional man who walked into her classroom believing that owning a company automatically made him better at languages than the woman standing at the front of the room. She was 29, intelligent enough to know she didn't have all the answers, and stubborn enough to investigate whenever someone suggested she didn't belong in the room. She was also heavyset. Sofia had stopped apologizing for that years ago. It hadn't happened overnight. There had been years when she had stood in front of mirrors, pulling shirts over her stomach, turning sideways, wondering whether a particular dress made her look too big. There had been relatives who thought every family gathering required a comment about her weight. There had been dates where she had spent more time wondering whether the man across from her was secretly embarrassed to be seen with her than listening to what he was saying. Eventually, she'd gotten tired. Not then, tired. Those were 2 very different things. So she bought clothes she liked. She wore fitted dresses when she wanted to. She wore heels when her feet could tolerate them. She ate dessert without announcing that she would start dieting on Monday. And when someone looked at her body with judgment, she had learned to look back until they became uncomfortable first. That afternoon, she wore a dark green wrap dress beneath a cream cardigan, the fabric falling comfortably over her curves. She had spent the morning correcting her students' pronunciation, and the afternoon pretending she wasn't counting the minutes until class ended. Dmitri Volkov sat in the back row. He had been there for 20 minutes before Sofia really noticed him. He hadn't taken out his phone once. He wasn't taking notes. He wasn't looking at the other students. He was watching her. Not in the way men sometimes watched women. There was no smirk, no wandering gaze, no obvious appraisal. He simply looked at her with an intensity that made her suddenly aware of herself. Sofia straightened. Mr. Volkov. His eyes remained on hers. Yes. You've been staring at me for the last 10 minutes. A few students laughed. Dmitri didn't. I have. The honesty caught her off guard. Sofia lifted an eyebrow. Is there a reason? You correct people without making them feel stupid. That's because I don't enjoy making people feel stupid. You just corrected Mr. Henderson 6 times. Mr. Henderson needed 6 corrections. The class laughed. For the first time, the corner of Dmitri's mouth moved. It wasn't quite a smile. It was close enough to make Sofia wonder what it would take to make him actually smile. She turned back to the board. When class ended, everyone gathered their things and left. Dmitri remained seated. Sofia stacked her papers. You already speak Russian. I do. Fluently. Yes. So why are you taking my class? My father owns the building. She looked at him. That's not an answer. He mentioned a woman was teaching Russian here who made 3 executives apologize to her in the same week. Sofia smiled by herself. That sounds exaggerated. It wasn't. Who? Alexei Sorokin. She laughed. Oh, he deserved it. Dmitri stood. He was taller than she'd realized, much taller, and there was something about the way he moved that made her suddenly understand why the 2 men waiting outside the classroom had spent the entire lesson pretending not to watch the door. What did he do? He tried to explain Pushkin to me. In broken Russian. That earned the first genuine smile from him. Sofia stared. There it was. And somehow that tiny, rare smile made him far more dangerous than his silence had. I'll buy you coffee. She blinked. Excuse me? You can tell me exactly how badly he butchered Pushkin. She should have refused. Every sensible instinct she possessed told her to refuse. Instead, she picked up her handbag. 1 coffee. Dmitri nodded. 1 coffee. Neither of them understood yet that the first coffee would become dinner. Dinner would become weekends. Weekends would become a key to his apartment. And eventually, that apartment would become the place where Sofia learned that the quiet man she'd fallen in love with was not a businessman. He was the heir to something much darker. Their relationship didn't begin with fireworks. It began with details. Dmitri remembered things. Sofia mentioned once that she hated overly sweet coffee. He never ordered it that way again. She told him her grandmother used to sing Russian folk songs while cooking. 2 weeks later, Dmitri sent her a recording of one of those songs performed by an old Moscow choir. She stared at the message for nearly a minute. Then she called him. You remembered. I remember everything about you. The words should have sounded possessive. Instead, they sounded intimate. That was how Dmitri affected her. He could make dangerous things sound tender. He took her to restaurants where the staff seemed to know his name before he gave it. He never bragged, never talked about money, never told her what he was worth. He simply paid the bill without looking at it and listened when she talked. Sofia liked that. She liked that he didn't interrupt her. She liked that he could sit silently for 10 minutes without making the silence uncomfortable. She liked that when she complained about a pair of shoes hurting her feet, he quietly replaced the car she used with one that had more comfortable floor space without mentioning why. She discovered that Dmitri was terrifying to other people. She discovered it gradually. A waiter once spilled wine near his coat and apologized so profusely that Sofia laughed. Dmitri didn't. Outside, she nudged his arm. You scared him. I didn't do anything. Exactly. He looked at her. Would you prefer that I did? She laughed. No. Good. There were other things. The men who followed them at a distance, the calls Dmitri answered in Russian, the way he always chose a seat with a view of the entrance, the way his hands sometimes went instinctively to the small of her back, when strangers moved too close. Sofia noticed. She simply chose not to ask. Until the night she couldn't avoid the truth anymore. She had left her scarf at his apartment. Dmitri had given her a key several weeks earlier. She let herself in. The apartment was quiet. Then she heard voices. Men. Russian. She followed the sound. Dmitri sat at the dining table with 4 men. A map covered the polished wood. There were photographs, names, shipping routes, and a pistol beside one man's coffee cup. Sofia stopped in the doorway. Dmitri looked up. Everything in his face changed. The men stopped speaking. Nobody moved. Sofia looked at the map, then at the weapon, then at Dmitri. "You don't work in real estate." Nobody answered. Dmitri stood. "Leave." The men gathered their papers immediately. Sofia watched them walk past her without making eye contact. When the door finally closed, silence filled the apartment. Dmitri approached slowly. "You should have told me." "I should have." "What do you do?" He stopped several feet away. "My family controls a criminal organization." Sofia's stomach tightened. He continued. "My father runs it. I'm his successor." She stared at him. For the first time since meeting him, she couldn't read his face. "Are you dangerous?" His answer came quietly. "Yes." She looked away. Dmitri waited. He didn't touch her. He didn't try to convince her that he was secretly a good man. He didn't tell her that she had nothing to fear. Instead, he told her the truth. "I've hurt people." Her throat tightened. "I've ordered things I can't undo." He took another breath. "But I've never lied to myself about what I am." Sofia looked at him. "Then why did you lie to me?" His expression cracked. "Because I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't part of this world." She didn't answer. Dmitri stepped closer. "I should have told you sooner." "You should have." "I was afraid." "You're afraid of me?" "No." He looked directly into her eyes. "I'm afraid of losing you." That was the moment Sofia knew she was already too in deep. Meeting Dmitri Volkov was worse. Sofia stood inside the elevator of the Fifth Avenue penthouse and stared at her reflection in the mirrored wall. Her dress was beautiful, she knew that. The emerald fabric fit her body instead of hiding it. Her waist was defined, her neckline was elegant. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. And yet, as the elevator climbed, Sofia found herself tugging at the fabric over her stomach. She stopped. Her hand remained there for a second. Then she lowered it. She wasn't going to start shrinking herself because the Volkov family had marble floors. The elevator doors opened. Dmitri looked at her. He didn't say anything at first. His eyes moved slowly over her. Then he stepped forward. "You look beautiful." Sofia smiled faintly. "You're biased." "I am." He offered his hand. She took it. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. "Don't change a thing." She looked at him. "I wasn't planning to." "I know." The doors closed behind them. Dmitri Volkov was waiting. He was older than Dmitri, obviously, but there was something about him that made age irrelevant. He had the stillness of someone who had survived long enough to stop proving he could survive. His eyes moved over Sofia, not cruelly, assessing. Sofia felt the familiar sensation of becoming aware of her body. The expensive women she had seen in the foyer were mostly slender, immaculate, and dressed in clothes that looked as though they had never experienced an ordinary day. For one uncomfortable second, Sofia wondered whether Yuri had expected his son to bring home someone different. Dmitri's fingers tightened around her. Barely, but she noticed. Yuri noticed too. "You're Sofia." "Yes." "The teacher." "Yes." "The one who humiliated Sorokin." Sofia smiled. "He humiliated himself." Yuri stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was quiet, brief, but Dmitri looked genuinely startled. Dinner changed after that. Yuri asked Sofia about language, then education, then Russia, then her grandmother. When a translation dispute came up involving a Moscow supplier, Sofia immediately identified the problem. The Russian clause doesn't mean what your English contract says it means. Yuri looked at her. What does it mean? She explained. He sat back, then looked at Dmitri. She's useful. Sofia raised her eyebrow. I'm sitting right here. Dmitri's mouth twitched. Yuri's eyes narrowed. Good. For the first time that evening, Sofia relaxed. Later, inside the elevator, Dmitri pulled her against him. He likes you. He called me useful. That's practically affection from my father. She laughed. Then her smile faded. Did he expect you to marry someone else? Dmitri became still. Probably. Someone thinner? His eyes changed immediately. Sofia. She looked away. I noticed. He stepped closer. Don't. What? Don't compare yourself to anyone in that house. Sofia looked back at him. I wasn't asking for reassurance. I know. He touched her cheek. I've never looked at another woman and wondered what it would feel like to touch her the way I touch you. Her breath caught. That's a very dangerous thing to say. I've never been particularly safe. He kissed her. And this time, Sofia kissed him back without fear. For the next 18 months, Sofia learned that happiness did not always look peaceful. Sometimes it looked like Dmitri stealing the last strawberry from her plate and pretending he hadn't. Sometimes it looked like him standing in her kitchen at midnight because he'd finished a meeting early and wanted to see her. Sometimes it looked like the two of them arguing about whether he was allowed to replace every broken thing in her apartment without asking. Sometimes it looked like him sitting on the bathroom floor while she cried over her brother. Her brother had been dead for 3 years. A robbery. No arrest. No closure. Sofia rarely talked about him. The night she finally did, Dmitri didn't offer meaningless comfort. He simply held her. Later, after she fell asleep, he sat awake beside her. Within a week, he reopened the case. He found nothing. But he never stopped looking. Sofia didn't know. There were things Dmitri did because he wanted gratitude. And there were things he did because he couldn't bear the thought of someone hurting her and getting away with it. The end came on an ordinary Thursday. That was what made it cruel. There was no argument, no warning, no dramatic betrayal. Dmitri had kissed her goodbye that morning. He had told her he'd see her that night. Then Yuri called him. A courier had been found dead in a Brooklyn warehouse. A photograph was recovered from the body. Sofia leaving her apartment. Her address was written beneath it, and one word, leverage. Dmitri stared at the photograph. His hands shook. Yuri saw it. The Marchettis have been waiting for this. There has to be another way. There isn't. There always is. Yuri looked at his son. I said those words when your mother was alive. Dmitri went silent. Yuri continued. If you keep Sofia, they will use her. I can protect her. Until the day you can't. Dmitri stared at the photograph. Then he understood. The only way to make Sofia safe was to make the Marchettis believe she meant nothing to him. He had spent his entire life learning how to destroy people. He had never imagined the hardest person he would ever have to destroy was himself. Sofia opened the door expecting him to kiss her. Instead, Dmitri stood there like a stranger. His coat was wet. His face was expressionless. She smiled. You look terrible. He didn't smile back. Her smile disappeared. Dmitri? We're done. For a moment, she thought she'd misunderstood. What? I'm ending this. She stared at him. Why? I don't want it anymore. Her heart seemed to stop. That's not funny. I'm not joking. She searched his face. 2 hours earlier, he'd sent her a stupid photograph of a dog wearing sunglasses. 3 days earlier, he told her he loved her. A week earlier, he'd fallen asleep with his head against her shoulder while she read. This wasn't possible. What happened? Nothing. Then why? I met someone else. She stared. The room blurred. You're lying. No. Look at me. He did. That was the cruelest part, because his eyes were empty. Sofia stepped closer. Tell me you don't love me. Dmitri's throat tightened. He had rehearsed this. He had practiced. He had prepared himself to survive her hatred. But he had not prepared himself for her voice. Tell me. He forced the words out. I don't love you anymore. Something inside Sofia broke. She nodded once. Okay. She turned away. Dmitri nearly moved, nearly grabbed her, nearly told her everything. Instead, he walked out. The door closed behind him. Sofia stood there for several seconds. Then her knees gave out. She hit the floor. And 3 blocks away, Dmitri sat in the back of his car with his head bowed between his hands. His driver looked at him through the mirror. Dmitri said nothing. Neither did the driver. But for the first time in years, Dmitri Volkov cried where someone else could see him. 2 years changed Sofia. Not completely, but enough. She became better at pretending. She moved to another school. She made friends. She laughed. She dated. She learned how to sleep without reaching across the bed. She learned how to go through an entire day without saying his name. But she never learned how to forget him. Sometimes it was something ridiculous. A particular coffee, a Russian song, the smell of cedar after rain. Sometimes it was her own reflection. Sofia had spent years learning not to apologize for her body. Dmitri had been the first man who made her feel as though he didn't simply accept her body. He wanted her. All of her. There were days that she missed that certainty so badly that she hated herself for it. There were nights when she stood in front of her closet, choosing what to wear, and remembered the way Dmitri used to look at her when she wore something fitted. He never made her feel like she had to become smaller to deserve desire. She missed that. More than she wanted to admit. Dmitri had his own version of the same punishment. He worked. He expanded the Volkov operation. He negotiated. He fought. He became colder. Yuri watched him become increasingly like the man Dmitri had once promised himself he would never become. Eventually, Yuri confronted him. You are still watching her. Dmitri didn't look up. She's alive. That wasn't my question. Silence. Yuri sighed. Protecting someone is not the same as possessing them. Dmitri's jaw tightened. I know. Do you? Dmitri finally looked at him. I let her go. No. Yuri shook his head. You abandoned her. There is a difference. That sentence stayed with Dmitri. 2 years after their breakup, Sofia walked into a private club on West 47th Street. She didn't know Dmitri owned it. She didn't know he would be standing outside. She didn't know 3 men were about to shoot at her. She didn't know that the man she had spent 2 years trying to forget would save her life before she had time to scream. And she certainly didn't know that the truth about their breakup was about to destroy the carefully constructed life she'd built without him. After the shooting, Dmitri took her to his penthouse. Sofia sat on the edge of the sofa with her arms folded. He stood across from her. Neither spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, Sofia looked up. "Tell me the truth." Dmitri didn't hesitate. "The Marchettis found out about you." Her face hardened. "What does that mean?" "They photographed you. They found your apartment. They intended to use you against my family. So you left me. I thought I was saving you." "You thought?" The words were quiet. Dmitri accepted the accusation. "Yes." She stood. "You let me believe I wasn't enough." His expression changed. "No. You told me you didn't love me. I lied. You told me you wanted another woman. I lied. You looked me in the eyes while I was falling apart." His voice broke. "I know." Sofia stared at him. "Do you know what that did to me?" "Every day." "Don't say that." "I know." "No." She stepped closer. "You don't get to say you know." Her eyes filled. "You don't know what it was like to spend 2 years wondering what was wrong with me." Dimitri's face tightened. "There was nothing wrong with you. I wondered whether you got tired of me. You were never the problem. I wondered whether you stopped finding me beautiful." Dmitri crossed the distance between them. He stopped before touching her. "Sofia." She looked up. "I have never stopped finding you beautiful." Her breath trembled. "I don't believe you." "I know." She laughed bitterly. "That's the problem." Dmitri swallowed. "I can't undo what I did." "No." "I can't give you those 2 years back." "No. But I can tell you the truth now." She stared at him. "I never stopped loving you." The room went silent. Sofia hated that her heart still reacted to those words. She hated that her body still remembered him. She hated that after 2 years, some part of her still wanted to step forward. Dmitri didn't touch her. That mattered. For once, he wasn't deciding what happened next. He was waiting. Sofia looked at his hand, then his face. "You don't get me back because you explained yourself." "I know." "You don't get to decide we're together again." "I know." "You don't get to protect me by lying to me." "I won't." She looked at him for a long time. Then she whispered the thing she had been afraid to admit. "I still love you." Dmitri closed his eyes. For 1 second, the ruthless air disappeared. He looked like the man who had once sat beside her while she cried over her brother. He opened his eyes. "Then let me earn the right to hear you say it again." The second beginning was harder than the first. Dmitri didn't assume anything. He asked before touching her. He told her where he was going. He told her what was happening. He stopped making decisions on her behalf. It drove him insane. Sofia noticed. "You hate this." He looked at her. "What?" "Not being in control." He exhaled. "I hate not being able to protect you." "Those aren't the same thing." He stared at her, then nodded. "No." She smiled. "Good." He reached for her hand. She let him take it. That became their new language. Not possession, permission. Not control, trust. When the Marchettis attacked one of the Volkov restaurants, Dmitri returned home with blood on his cuff. She didn't panic. She simply walked toward him. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Whose blood?" "Not mine." She sighed. "That's not exactly comforting." He almost smiled. "I'm working on it." 3 weeks later, the Marchettis tried to take Dimitri's sister. Sofia happened to be there. She heard the struggle before a security arrived. She grabbed the nearest heavy vase and swung it into the attacker's shoulder with enough force to send him crashing into the wall. When Dmitri arrived, he stopped. Sofia stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. The broken vase lay on the floor. His sister stared at her. Dmitri stared at her. Then he laughed. Sofia frowned. "What's funny?" He shook his head. "Nothing. You're laughing." I'm proud of you. She rolled her eyes. I just assaulted a man with a vase. Exactly. Sofia couldn't help laughing, and Dmitri realized something. He didn't need to make Sofia fearless. He needed to trust the woman she already was. The final confrontation came at the docks. Sal Marchetti had spent years believing that Dmitri's greatest weakness was Sofia. He was wrong. Sofia was not Dmitri's weakness. She was the reason he had finally learned what strength actually meant. Dmitri had ordered her to stay at the penthouse. She agreed. Then she broke the promise. She arrived at the docks just as Sal Marchetti began speaking. Mist rolled across the water. Yuri stood beside Dmitri. 12 Marchetti soldiers stood opposite them. Sal smiled. You should have killed me years ago. Dmitri's eyes remained cold. I don't kill men because they annoy me. Sal laughed. You kill men because you're afraid. Dmitri's expression didn't change. I'm not afraid of you. Sal's hand moved. Sofia saw it. She didn't think. She screamed, Dmitri! He dropped. The gunshot tore through the night. The dock exploded into chaos. Dmitri returned fire. Men scattered. Yuri's soldiers moved. Sofia pressed herself against the side of a container, heart pounding. Then, silence. She looked up. Dmitri was standing, alive. He saw her. His face changed. He crossed the dock. When he reached her, he grabbed her and pulled her against his chest. You promised me you would stay away. She pushed against him. You could have died. So could you. I know. Then why did you come? Her eyes filled. Because I couldn't lose you again. Dmitri went still. Then he pulled her closer. For once, he didn't try to hide how much she mattered. He kissed her. Not like the first time. Not like the reunion. This kiss carried everything. The love, the anger, the grief, the 2 lost years, the second chance. When they finally separated, Dmitri rested his forehead against hers. I love you. Sofia closed her eyes. I know. He smiled. That's all I get? She opened her eyes. For now. He laughed, a real laugh. And Yuri, standing several feet away, watched his son hold the woman who had somehow brought the warmth back into him. He looked almost amused, almost proud. Dmitri proposed in the classroom where they had first met. There were no cameras, no orchestra, no crowd. Just the old desk, the chalkboard, the same room where Sofia had once accused him of staring. Sofia walked inside. Dmitri stood at the front. His hands were in his pockets. She immediately became suspicious. What are you doing? He smiled. Something I've been thinking about for a long time. Sofia folded her arms. That usually means trouble with you. Probably. He walked toward her, then stopped. He took a ring from his pocket. Sofia stared. Dmitri dropped to down a knee. Her hand flew to her mouth. I spent a long time believing that loving you meant protecting you from everything. His voice was steady. I was wrong. Sofia's eyes filled. Loving you means trusting you. He held out the ring. It means telling you the truth, even when the truth scares me. His voice softened. And it means understanding that you are not something I own. Sofia laughed through her tears. Good. Dmitri smiled. I don't want a woman who belongs to me. He looked directly into her eyes. I want the woman who chooses me. Sofia looked at him. This man had once broken her heart because he believed he knew what was best for her. Now he was kneeling in front of her, asking her to decide. She slowly extended her hand. Yes. Dmitri exhaled. She smiled. But I have conditions. His eyebrow lifted. Of course you do. If you ever lie to me like that again, I will leave. I know. If you ever decide you're protecting me by making choices for me, I'll make your life miserable. I expected that. And if your father ever calls me useful again, I'm charging him consulting fees. Dmitri laughed. Done. He slid the ring onto her finger. Then he stood. Sofia looked down at the ring. For years, she had believed that the love story of her life had ended when Dmitri walked out of her apartment. She had been wrong. It hadn't ended. It had broken. And sometimes broken things could be rebuilt, not into what they had been, into something stronger, something chosen, something honest. Dmitri wrapped his arms around her. Sofia rested her cheek against his chest. Outside the classroom, New York continued moving. Taxis crossed intersections. People hurried under umbrellas. Buildings glittered against the evening sky. The city knew nothing about the two people standing inside that classroom. It didn't know about the bullets, the lies, the years apart, the nights Sofia had cried herself to sleep, the nights Dmitri had sat awake wondering whether loving her from a distance was enough. It didn't know that the most dangerous man in one of New York's darkest families had finally learned that love was not measured by how fiercely you could possess someone. It was measured by whether you could give them the freedom to choose you. And Sofia Reyes had chosen him, not because she needed rescuing, not because he was powerful, not because his name could open every door in the city. She chose him because beneath the Volkov name, beneath the violence, the money, the fear, and the reputation, there was a man who had finally learned how to love her without asking her to become smaller to fit into his world. And for the first time, Sofia didn't feel like she was entering the Volkov world. She felt as though they had finally built one of their own. Dmitri? He looked down at her. Yes? She smiled. I'm still not letting you forget that you made me cry for 2 years. His mouth curved. I know. She narrowed her eyes. Good. He kissed her forehead. And this time, when he held her, there was no secret waiting behind the embrace, no threat, no lie, no goodbye. Only the woman he had loved from the moment she made him laugh in a classroom, and the man who had finally learned that keeping her did not mean holding her tightly enough that she couldn't leave. It meant giving her every reason to stay. If Sofia and Dmitri's story pulled you in, the ache of the lie, the fire of the reunion, the danger neither of them could outrun, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs a reminder that real love fights its way back, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories of forbidden passion, danger, and the kind of devotion that survives everything.